The way I see it, you gotta be a little crazy to keep from going totally crazy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to After Action Report, your recap show for Ultimate Night matches to keep you caught up on all the action. I am your host, Megs, here for the Call to Action podcast channel, here giving you the stats and storylines for the latest Friday Night Titans. Now, we did miss last week's episode. I was out of town and was not able to get a episode recorded in time. But you can check out the social media pages for Call to Action, where I posted the breakdowns of the matches themselves and my thoughts in writing of what I thought of the episode overall. So be sure to check those out. We saw the number one contender qualifying and number one contender matches in singles. So we're all set up for the title match. It's going to be going down here in a couple weeks. But let's go ahead and move into this week's episode. So the focus this week was on the IG division, where our undercard match was an IG match, and we are seeing some build up for the IG championship match that's coming up here in this next week. We also can't forget that we got the debut of a new team with veteran competitors, with Marisol McKee and Mike Kalinowski teaming up as the team called Impact. And I think we can say that the trivia is as insane as some of the people that are involved. In our first scene, we see Smets is waiting and stops Parker to try and get on the same page with him before the title match. But Parker is done having both him and Kaiser talking and knows he is going to be the next champion. So despite Kevin Smets' best efforts, Parker is still convinced that both Smets and Kaiser were playing him all last season and did him wrong, and that he is where he needs to be on the den. And as has been said, the title match between these two will take place next week, and would love to hear your thoughts on who you think will be taking that match. But before we get into that, let's jump into our next scene, which will set up our undercard match, where we see Adam Witt outside of a door and find out he is waiting for Adam Collins in order to talk about Coast to Coast challenging his team of the Movement. Witt pulls aside Sean Wingblade and offers to set them both up with an IG match before Collins is set to play in the teams match and makes a grand exit. So yeah, there is nothing weird about Adam Witt waiting outside of a bathroom door for Adam Collins to come out to confront him about challenging a team called the Movement. Yeah, nothing ironic or weird about that at all. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Sean, he is a former FCL competitor as well as fellow Action Army member who competed in the IG division of the FCL League. He lost his first match, but went on to win his next 3 matches, giving him an overall 3-1 record from last season, as well as an overall 80% accuracy in that league. So he's coming in with a lot to prove, as well as Collins has been talking about coming into the IG division for a while. So this is their chance to make their mark in this division. So without further ado, let's jump into our undercard match, Adam the Coyote Collins against Sean Wingblade. Coming out of round 1, Wingblade is up by 1, 8-7. In round 2, Wingblade defers to Collins, who spins away from the wild card and ends up taking Superman. He comes away with 7 out of 10 points, checking down the multiple choice 3 times, but not giving up any steal opportunities. Wingblade takes his wild card on the first spin. It ends up being opponent's choice and is given fantasy sci-fi. Wingblade comes away with 5 out of 10 points, checking down the multiple choice on 4 questions, misses one of those questions, and it is stolen for 1 point by Collins, which gives Collins a gain of 3 points to now he is up by 2 points, 15-13 going into the final round. Where Wingblade hits a 2-pointer in X-Men, Collins hits a 2-pointer in comic book movies. Wingblade misses a 3-pointer in scores and soundtracks, but does hit his 5-pointer in swashbuckling, adventure, and pulp. This bounces it back over to Collins to answer a 3-pointer in villains. He misses that question, so he is left with his 5-pointer in mixed bag, which he also misses, which gives Wingblade the win with a final score of 20-17. Where Adam Collins answered 14 of 19 questions for 74% accuracy and scored 53% of 32 available points. Sean Wingblade answered 14 of 18 questions for 78% accuracy and scored 65% of 31 available points. So this was just a fun back and forth match to see, with Sean having a slight lead coming out of round one, and then Collins being able to force a change in the lead there in round two. But then Wingblade hitting those tough final round questions when it counted to force Adam Collins to have to answer his, and Collins just hitting a wall there at the end and not being able to retake the lead in the game. Overall, this was nice to get to see them play. With us getting towards the end of our season, it's doubtful we'll get to see them in this division moving forward, but it was, again, a treat to see, and we know for sure that Collins is going to have a match coming up in the teams division, so looking forward to seeing that. We now get to the midpoint in our episode, and after the break, we get another scene before our main event. Mike Kalinowski and Marisol McKee are talking about their new team dynamic. Radis and Brother Lomas come in and challenge them to their first match. Mike and Marisol do accept and seem confident in their ability to take this match. So it seems this wasn't the team up that either Mike or Marisol were expecting, but they are united in their thought of putting the Reckoning in their place. Now, Radis seems very bold and very confident in his challenge, but despite his words, Brother Lomas seems a little nervous about this. And this takes us right into our main event, the team match between Team Impact, Marisol McKee and Mike Kalinowski, and the Reckoning, Rick the Rager Radis and Brother Lomas. Coming out of round one, Impact is up by 1, 20-19. Radis going perfect with the bonus for 11 points. Mike and Marisol both going perfect for 10 points, but both missing the bonus question. And Lomas comes away with 8 points in this round. In round two, Impact defers to have the Reckoning spin first, who take Richard Donner on their first spin. They come away with 8 out of 10 points, checking down to multiple choice on one question and missing that question for a 1-point steal. Impact takes Spike Lee on their first spin, and they sweep the round for the full 10 points. This gives Impact a gain of additional 3 points to now be up by 4, 31-27. In round three, Brother Lomas hits a 2-pointer in Steven Spielberg. Radis hits his 3-pointer in Animated, bouncing it back to Mike to hit a 2-pointer in Streaming, which then sends it right back to the Reckoning to answer their 5-pointer in 2010s, which they miss. This gives Impact the win with a final score of 33-32, where Impact answered 27 of 29 questions for 93% accuracy and scored 94% of 35 available points. The Reckoning answered 25 of 29 questions for 86% accuracy and scored 76% of 42 available points. Now, both teams played well here in round one, keeping it within 1 point coming into that second round, but it was that steal opportunity that put the Reckoning in a position to where they were going to have to answer all 3 questions in round 3. It was very unlikely that Impact was going to miss their 2 and their 3, but had the Reckoning been able to hit their 5-pointer, it would have forced Impact to have to answer at least their 5-pointer in order to win the match. Now I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on the almost challenge that Impact almost threw out on the Reckoning for round 1, with the answer being the Page Master, and Brother Lomas only putting down Page Master. Now, you notice that Brother Lomas did split up the word into 2, so Page Master, while everyone else had the Page Master being only 1 word. Now, I don't know for sure what the exact reasoning would be for why Impact decided to not challenge the question, but a possible reason is if there was any sort of thought that, well, maybe Page Master is 2 words, that would make it a 3-word title, in which case the idea of having to have the correct article in front of a 2-word movie title would no longer apply, and they would end up losing their challenge. But regardless, it was still a fair discussion for them to have, and it is a fair tactic to make your opponent think twice before their next answer, knowing that they probably got away with giving an incorrect answer. And so with that, that takes us to the end of our matches for the night, but there is one final scene before we sign off. Sean Wingblade and Adam Collins are approached by Kevin Smets, who congratulates them on their match. We see Robert Parker show up with Elvis, but ends up making a hasty retreat, being pursued by the Barbarian, leaving Smets, Wingblade, and Collins to comment on the chaos. So we do get confirmation that Parker does still have Albus in his possession, but is currently being pursued by the Barbarian trying to get it back. And I have to agree with Smets, Wingblade, and Collins. Things are getting a little crazy inside the studio. And that is going to do it for this week's episode. But don't worry, I'm going to be right back here next week covering all the stats and all the storylines for the next Friday Night Titans. Now, this next week will be our penultimate episode of our full Friday Night Titans episode. We have 2 more coming up, but then we're also going to be getting individual matches leading up to our final big event of Spectacular on October 1st. As far as what we know is coming up, we know that the title match between Sam Levine and Ethan Arone will take place in 2 weeks, which will be the final Friday Night Titans episode. And this next week will be Kevin Smets against Robert Parker in an IG title match. As far as the undercards in this episode, we don't get any indication of what those matches will be, but we do know that coming up sometime, we will see Coast to Coast face off against the Movement. Again, as of this episode, we don't know when those matches will be taking place, but keep an eye on the socials for the Schmodown to find out when we can expect to see those matches. If you haven't already, make sure you hit like on this video, you're subscribed to the channel, and leave comments with your thoughts on the episode. The match breakdowns presented here will be posted on Twitter and Facebook. So until next time, for the entire Call to Action podcast crew, I'm your host, Megs, and this is After Action Report, signing off.